Welcome back to, Tots. For most of this video, we're going to be exploring the mountain, going to be seeing where all the locations of items, fish, bugs, things like that are. And then nearer the end, we'll have finally made our way to Konohana. We already saw the first screen in the last part, so jumping ahead to this. One fun thing I like about this, exploring the mountain, there's a bunch of different little obstacles there are, like we just jumped on a big mushroom, that's in a couple places. There's these one-way slides, and also, yeah, one of the animals you can see are boars, and them and bears will attack you, and they take off a little chunk of your stamina. Not too much, though. There's also this shrine here, which we actually won't be able to do anything with for a good long time. It stays closed for the first year. There's not much over in this little area. Sometimes there's like berries or twigs and rocks. Usually just worth quickly checking in case there is something. There's another boar hiding out there. For the animals, there are actually multiple types of each one. Like there was a dark-furred boar and that was a light-furred boar. If you pick up and like talk to one of each type, it counts for the other one as well. So say if I were to feed one of the ducks, it would also count as feeding the other one, since there's regular mallard duck and a white duck. Also in a couple places there are zip lines, like what I just did. All of those, including the mushrooms, are one way, but there's always another one nearby to get you back to the main path. I'm catching and picking up all of these bugs, all of these herbs, flowers, and everything. For the most part, I'm going to be selling them. In the rocks and twigs case, I'm going to be storing those in my storage until I can get a hammer and an axe and then make lumber and material stones out of them. This rock, we will actually be able to get rid of that and get down to the area underneath the bridge. But that's not for a good while later. There's a couple of rocks that are like that. Those open up after every time we've gotten Eileen to open up a little bit of the tunnel. But that doesn't happen until the start of each new season. Eileen's deal is she'll only offer to either upgrade your farm or to make headway through the tunnel. She'll never do both for a season, so it's a little obnoxious. Hence why I would have liked to have the option to do that, just kind of in her shop. But while I was ranting, we looked around the peak of the mountain. This is where we hold the cooking festivals and a couple of other festivals. And there was a little pond there, which houses a certain character we will see later in this video. That little sparrow is an example of one of the animals you have to also jump in order to grab, kind of like bugs. Although sometimes it's just kind of waddling on the ground. If you see the little docks next to a pond, that's one of the places where you can fish when you get a fishing rod. And the water's too deep for us to walk in, so if we just jump in there, we lose a bit of our stamina. Though there is a chance you will actually grab something on your way out. And that was a bear, since we didn't get to see the one that was hiding out in the log. Honeycomb are items that, since we're in Bluebell, eventually when we upgrade our farm, one of the items we will get is a beehive, so we will actually be able to turn honeycomb into honey. Since that's not for a good while, I'll just be going ahead and selling the honeycomb. It's worth a decent amount of gold, so no real sense to hang on to it right now. Well, unless maybe the star quality is like 1.5. Because then, in that case, I'd say it's worth hanging on to. You'll notice like grasshoppers and related locusts, crickets. Sometimes those actually pop up out of the ground, so you kind of need to walk around and explore in order to find them. Down here under the bridge is another crack in the wall. That's one of the few places where you can actually find ore stones. We haven't seen those yet, but once you get a hammer, ore stones can be cracked to not only get ore, but also jewels, which are worth a ton of money. But what you mostly want to do is hang on to the raw ore stones. Just put those into storage, because a couple of requests for items and upgrades will require the raw ore stone. So keep that in mind. Each of these separate maps, depending on which half of the mountain it's on, it technically counts as part of Bluebell or Konohana. Right now we're at the lower end of the Konohana mountain. And we got some bamboo. The description says it's used in a lot of recipes. It's only used in one, bamboo dumplings. And otherwise, the only real use of it is to give to pandas, which I have literally never seen, or to give to a character who lives in Konohana. He's one of the first guys we'll be meeting. And I've leveled up in bug catching. And a mysterious person contacts me to say so. There doesn't seem to be any real benefit for upgrading in bug catching and fishing. But it's cool to have. You get a new level every 10 or so new bugs and fish you catch. Oh, duckies. Ducks are like the only animal I actually feed, because it's very easy to find the food that they eat. In their case, they eat small killifish or regular-sized killifish. Here, I'm just checking to see if I have one, and I do. So let's feed the duck. You kind of need to direct him towards it sometimes. And one last tree stump before we head into Konohana proper. And harass the monkey. Here we go, here's Konohana. It's the Asian-themed, crop-centric counterpart to Bluebell. This is Panda Man. Well, not really, his name is Sheng, but he's obsessed with pandas. He basically lives his life as if he is a panda. And that does mean one of his favorite items is bamboo. So if you want to befriend him, it's an important thing to keep in mind. He likes a ton of other things, but that's just the most obvious thing to give him. Bamboo shoots are not one of his favorite items, so remember that. Now, he is actually the blacksmith, so later on he'll be upgrading our tools. First few upgrades don't need ore stones or anything, though, just money. Going ahead and just selling a few things, since my bag is so full. I'm hanging on to the half-star twig so I can later give it to Eileen. Right now I'm just kind of gauging which ones should I get rid of right now. It's just those. Also going to quickly drop by Kana's Animals. He is the counterpart to Grady in that he sells horses and pets. He is also one of the bachelors, so if you like the look of him, remember to keep him in mind. This area right here is the Konohana farm, so if we moved here, this would be where we're living. And you can see how the area with animals is considerably smaller. That's the chicken area right there. And every time I've kept a chicken there, they never laid eggs. Not a lot of space, but it's enough for your general purposes. There's Xena. True story, first time I played this, I thought she was an androgynous man. So I chose her, and I was disappointed. People don't really react differently whether you live in their village or not. They don't seem to mind. It really is just Rutger and Ina who hate each other. This is the doctor, Ayame. She never really does anything. And upstairs we have our next bachelor. Look at this adorable motherfucker. I wasn't even joking. All of the guys are cuter than the girls. And we haven't even seen his cute face. So just you wait. This is Mako, he runs the orchard. There's nothing that really goes on at the orchard. Though he is the uncle of Reina, who's another one of the bachelorettes. And this is Raoul. As you can see how he creeps me out the least out of those triplets. Also, his expression is more friendly than the others. Speaking of bamboo dumplings, I think she's selling them right now. Yoon runs a tea house, and she looks after her granddaughter, who's back here. This is Ying. She's adorable. She's also sick and very shy, so she's a poor little thing. Luckily, Ina has a son who is about her age, so they kind of keep an eye on each other. Oh, just catching Reina. If you want to go after Reina in your own game, and you're playing male, she likes most of the things that you find out on the mountain, so she's pretty easy to get along with. That was a random reaction. If she says, "I see, thank you," then that's just a general kind of item that she likes. You only get plus 50 friendship points from that. If she says, "It's actually very nice, thank you," then that means you gave her one of her liked items. Every character has only one specific all-time favorite item, though. So for example, Kana likes spicy curry, so if I were to make that and give that to him, his dialogue would be specific to that item. This is Nori, she is another bachelorette. Her grandfather, Gambe, sells seeds, so I'll need to come back here if I want to buy some. He's not open on Mondays and Tuesdays, though. And in some cases, I think he's purposefully closed on rainy days, so he's kind of obnoxious to get along with. This is Ina's son, Rahi. He's the naturally energetic and cheerful counterpart to Ying's shy and quiet. Kid, let me tell you, do not be in a rush to grow up. Oop. There doesn't seem to be any collision detection with other characters, which I'm perfectly okay with. It actually makes getting around practically hassle-free. Just go ahead and get rid of the bamboo. I don't really care about Shang right now. I'm really just selling most of my items. There are some requests that specifically ask for small coin. Usually Diego asks for them. And here we see the kind of the tricky thing about the shipping bin. Those slots are all you can put in there at one time. And once you've closed the shipping bin, those items are gone. You cannot get them back. So you need to be really sure that what you put in is what you want to sell. But also you can switch between the shipping bin and once we get our horse back and are able to attach a trailer to it, which will be the very next day. So we don't have to wait long. We can also alternate between our bag and storage. And this is actually a pretty easy way to switch items from your bag to storage without time progressing. As long as I'm in the shipping bin, time has stopped. But if I were to go into my bag or into my storage box, time still progresses, so it's something important to keep in mind. This is one of the few Harvest Moon games where when you're indoors or looking in your inventory, time still progresses, which presents an interesting and kind of subtle challenge in itself. It's another thing that I like. It's another killifish, but the duck is pretty much fed for the entire day. One thing I like, this little pond area at night has crabs. You can use those in like a couple recipes. There's a crab and a small crab. And they're used for different recipes. And during the summer, there's a different type of crab that we'll see. Also, I picked up an old ball. You can pick up some trash when you're fishing or when you're hand fishing. There'll be old balls, old boots, or fish skeletons. Old balls and old boots have a purpose, believe it or not, so I'll be hanging on to that one. That's pretty obvious. Toodles is kind of her catchphrase in a number of games. We'll actually be meeting her tomorrow. Right now I'm looking around for a cricket, because they only come out during the night. You can't exactly suss them out just by listening for them chirping. Holy hell! There's the panda. And they're just as lazy as in real life. Unlike the bear and the boar, he doesn't attack me. Just kind of runs away. So, there he is. He shows up at night. No wonder I never found him. I always get my exploration done during the day. Every time you catch a critter, it asks if you want to put it into a cage. The color of the cage, more or less, kind of tells you how much the creature is worth. Though it's not always accurate. Because sometimes bugs will be worth 30, 40, or 50 gold, and they'll be in green cage. Other times you can get a silver or a gold bug, and they're still also only like 40 or 50 gold. So it's more or less just a guiding system. Not always 100% guaranteed, though. And there's a cricket. I don't know why I was so dead set on finding one. Another animal, a mouse. Those are a little harder to find, and that's a raccoon. There's a couple of those hanging about. Animals just kind of default to not liking you. Only the bear and the boar actually attack you, though. And you'll notice I obviously couldn't pick them up. They'll charge at you, but if you just kind of press A near them, they just grumble at you, as if you talk to them, kind of like with your animals. The reason I'm hanging out so late at night is I was trying to prove a point, though I realized I don't have any tools, so I can't actually waste all my stamina. But one very nice thing about this is you can stay up until 5 a.m. At 5 a.m. you automatically pass out, and then you get taken back home. But no matter how much stamina you have lost, if you get to bed before 4:59 a.m., you get all of your stamina back, and you don't wake up later in the day, like you don't sleep in. So the game's surprisingly forgiving. Get used to that. Our mystery friend interrupts you after doing a number of things, most of them not all that spectacular. Oh, and there's fish bones. Fish bones do not have a use, so we'll be tossing that. Into the shipping go the spoils. Here I'm kind of deciding whether I should get rid of the old ball or not. We use 10 old balls and 10 old boots in order to get the best fishing rod. But that requires us being friends with Rutger. So it's not immediate. It also requires us having the first fishing pole, which we don't get until the first of summer. And here you can see how putting things in the shipping bin kind of requires planning ahead, making sure you absolutely have in there what you want to get rid of. Now, it would take a very long time for me to get back to Bluebell, but luckily, when you're in the other village, if you go to the town hall, you can sign into the guest book and stay there overnight. So it's good if you need to do something in the other village, but you don't want to spend the next day getting back there. Just having a look around the town hall. Both town halls are more or less the same. This is a concert room, which only really gets used once a year. And let's go ahead. And this is also to show something else, because we're still not done with the story and the tutorial part of the game. So if you have signed into the guest book in another village, but something happens in your home, like someone has come to your house to tell you something, your character thinks they've forgotten something and immediately heads back. So the forgiveness of this game just piles on. And what a shock. It's the Harvest Goddess. If you remember back to Harvest Moon 64, and maybe even the very first Harvest Moon, I don't know, I haven't played it, the Harvest Goddess's role in each game has grown just exponentially. In Harvest Moon 64, she's just an extra character that shows up sometimes if you throw things into her pond. But this is one of the down points of Tale of Two Towns for me. The reason that the two villages hate each other. It's her fault. And here she's going to explain why. And despite how she describes it, and even how the game describes it, it is entirely her fault. So generations ago, this is what it was like when the tunnel was clear. The people of two villages crossing between it, going back and forth at their leisure. With bats. This cutscene is kind of long. In that it's stretched, you might say. Not a whole lot happens, it takes a while for each individual new thing to happen. And here the arguing started. You'll see the cooking and the cooking festival is a tradition that goes back generations. So you can see how it's kind of the epicenter of the two villages not getting along. So what's happening is the two mayors are just bickering. It's just a one-time, quick little, mild xenophobic irritation at each other. And then the Harvest Goddess gets involved. And so because they disrupt her beauty sleep once, she closes the tunnel. Now, imagine if she hadn't closed the tunnel. The two mayors would have just eventually gotten over their bullshit. They'd be like, alright, I don't necessarily like you, but I guess we can get along. Now that she's actually shut off the tunnel, they can blame each other for it. So now they just continue hating each other. And the entire reason this happens is all because of the Harvest Goddess. And she acts like she did nothing wrong. I generally don't like the Harvest Goddess in any of these games. Like Magical Melody, she turned herself to stone because the people had stopped believing in her. Well, maybe if you did shit, they might still believe in you. Oh, deities in Japanese games. They're such petulant children. I closed up the tunnel after one fucking day. You know, when I started this LP, I kind of intended it to be a little more family-friendly. Not so much cussing on my end. And then this damn story started. That'll probably be a lesson for me. But you know me, I'm verbose and explicit all the time. So in order to get the two mayors to become friends again, well, it just kind of happens automatically at the cooking festival 4 times a month. Whether you or your village wins or loses at the festival, the friendship meter for the two mayors goes up a little bit. If your village wins, the meter goes up more. If your village wins and you were taking part in it, it goes up even more. And you have the choice whether to take part or to just cheer them on from the sidelines. But in both cases, it doesn't matter. In fact, you get prizes whether you took part in it or not. You just have to go to the festival. Now, I haven't talked about Freshness yet. Freshness is not an indicator for much of anything at all. It's just a timer, really. Freshness does correlate to how much each item is worth when you sell it. If it's super fresh, you get the most. Of course, it also correlates with stars. But once your item has gotten to getting bad, you kind of need to actually do something with it. Otherwise, it'll go to it's rotten, and then you can only sell it for like 1 gold. And we got our horse. Now, I have not chosen a name for it yet, so in the next part, I will have decided which name I'm going to use for the horse in this game. We've gotten a lot of really good suggestions for it so far, but feel free to add some more. And also the cart. The cart is the same as our storage, almost literally. Although we do get to upgrade the cart, and buy another cart that we can upgrade even more. And that allows us to get even more storage, so you're not necessarily strapped for space. So, people in the thread, patrons, feel free to suggest more names for the horse. Finishing up my thoughts on Freshness, no matter what the freshness level of the item is, except for obviously if it's rotten, even if it's from super fresh or getting bad, ellipses, if you cook it, the cooked food that you get will always be super fresh. But people will not accept items from you if they're not super fresh or fairly fresh. It goes from super fresh, fairly fresh, not so fresh, getting bad, rotten. And they only accept the first two. But if you just need an item for cooking, then you only need to hang on to them until it's gotten rotten. Otherwise, you're allowed a lot of freedom in that case, which is very nice. So in the next part, we're going to see how traveling around with a horse speeds up the process of exploring the mountain, getting items, visiting people, speeds it up dramatically. And also, hopefully, we'll finally be meeting Cam. Someone in the thread pointed out there is also another person I'd forgotten about. There's 2 people who haven't shown up yet, 2 bachelors specifically. One is a mailman who lives in Konohana. Another is a musician who shows up in fall, who lives in your village at the town hall, depending on which village you live at. So it doesn't matter which. They're easy to get to. Also, the mailman goes from village to village. And he's probably the easiest guy to find. It just takes a while for him to show up. So, like, if you want to look up those 2 guys, feel free. After the next part, once we met Cam, I'm going to let voting on which bachelor I go for commence. And you can vote for those 2 guys. I honestly don't mind. But with that, I hope you enjoyed, hope you stick around, and I'll see you next time.